So let's talk about depression. It's a word we hear all the time, but what does it actually mean? Well, it's way more than just feeling sad. It's a serious, and this is the most important part, a treatable medical condition. In this explainer, we're going to demystify it. We'll look at how to recognize the signs, what you can do to support someone, and where to find real professional help.
Here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll nail down the difference between clinical depression and just feeling sad. Then, we'll get into the specific warning signs, figure out when it's time to get help, talk about how you can support others, and finally, look at the resources that are out there.
All right, first up, more than just sadness. Look, everybody feels down sometimes. That's just part of being human. But it's so important to understand where that line is, the line between a bad mood that passes and a clinical condition that really needs attention.
And that really brings us to the big question, right? Is this just a case of the blues, or is it something more? Being able to tell the difference is honestly the most critical first step toward understanding what's going on and getting the right kind of help.
This lays it out perfectly. On one side, you've got everyday sadness. It's usually temporary, often a reaction to something that happened. But on the other side, you have clinical depression. That's a persistent mood disorder that gets in the way of your daily life. And let me be really clear about this. It is a medical condition. It is not a weakness or a character flaw you can just snap out of.
So how do professionals actually tell the difference? Let's jump into section 2, recognizing the warning signs. You know, clinicians don't just guess. They use a very specific set of criteria from what's called the DSM-5, which is basically the handbook for mental health diagnoses. To get a formal diagnosis of what's called major depressive disorder, the rules are super specific. A person has to show at least 5 key symptoms, pretty much every day, for at least 2 weeks straight. And here's the kicker. It has to be a clear change from how they used to be. Okay, now this is absolutely crucial. Out of all the possible symptoms, at least one of the next 2 we're about to talk about has to be there. Think of them as the foundation of the diagnosis. Without one of these, it's not considered major depressive disorder. And here they are. The first is a depressed mood that just hangs around all day, almost every single day, that feeling of sadness or emptiness that you just can't shake. The second one is huge. It's called anhedonia. It's a fancy word for losing interest or pleasure in things you used to love, whether that's a hobby, seeing friends, anything. So on top of one of those 2 core symptoms, you also need to see at least 3 or 4 of these to hit that magic number of 5. We're talking about big changes in weight or appetite, sleeping way too much or not being able to sleep at all, and a kind of physical restlessness or slowness that other people can actually notice. It also includes that deep, bone-weary fatigue, overwhelming feelings of worthlessness, trouble focusing, and, so importantly, thoughts of death or suicide. Okay, so you're recognizing the signs. What's next? That brings us to section 3, when to seek help. Knowing the symptoms is one thing, but knowing the right moment to actually do something, that's where it really counts. Here are some really clear signals. If the things we just talked about have been going on for more than 2 weeks and they're starting to mess with work, school, or your relationships, it's time. If you just feel completely overwhelmed, like you can't cope, or if you find yourself using things like alcohol to get by, that is a huge sign to reach out to a doctor or a mental health professional. And I cannot stress this enough. Any thoughts of self-harm or suicide are a medical emergency. If you or anyone you know is in crisis, you can call or text 988 in the U.S. to connect with the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It is available 24/7, it's free, it's confidential, and you will get support immediately. Now, let's shift gears a bit. What if it's not you, but someone you care about who's struggling? This brings us to our next section, how you can help. It can feel really overwhelming to know what to do, so let's walk through a practical guide to being a source of support. So what can you actually do? First, just open the door. Let them know they can talk to you and you'll listen without judgment. Second, stay connected. Keep calling, keep texting, keep inviting them out, even if they say no. Just being asked means the world. Third, offer to help with practical stuff. Depression makes even tiny tasks feel impossible. Fourth, like we said, take any talk of suicide seriously and get help right away. And finally, gently, kindly, encourage them to talk to a professional. And this is such an important point. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to fix anything. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can possibly do is just be there and truly listen. It's about letting them know they're not alone. And that brings us to our final section, finding the right support. So once that decision is made to get help, it's good to know what the options actually are. The mental health system isn't one size fits all. There are a lot of different levels of care.
So beyond the 988 Lifeline, organizations like NAMI and Mental Health America are just fantastic places to start. They've got support groups, tons of information, and guides to help you figure out the system. And the crisis text line is another amazing option for getting immediate help just through text.
You know, a really helpful way to think about the mental health system is to picture it like a staircase. You can step up to a higher level of care when you need more support, and you can step back down as you start to feel better. It's a flexible system that's designed to meet you right where you are.
So let's just walk up that staircase really quickly. Outpatient care is the most common, right? Think weekly therapy sessions. If you need a bit more, there's intensive outpatient, or IOP, which is a few times a week. A step up from that is partial hospitalization. That's a full-day program, but you get to go home at night. And for the highest levels of support, you've got residential treatment and inpatient hospitalization for 24/7 care and safety. And remember, the whole point of this system is to find that perfect balance, to provide the best treatment in a way that's the least disruptive to a person's life, while always making sure they are safe.
As we wrap this up, I really want to leave you with this powerful message. Depression is so common. It is serious. But, and this is everything, it is treatable. Millions of people go through this, and millions of people find their way to the other side. You are not alone.
And that brings us to one final thought. Understanding all of this is the first step, but it's taking action that truly makes a difference. So now that you know the signs, I'll just leave you with this question. How can you be that crucial first step for a friend, a family member, or maybe even for yourself?